Senator Gravel will begin the next round of answers with you. The President and many in Congress state that legislation, like the Patriot Act, the Real ID Act, and the related surveillance, with or without a warrant, of those deemed suspected terrorists is necessary to lessen the likelihood of another attack like what was suffered on 9/11. How would you, as President, weigh the rights of personal privacy with the need to gather intelligence in our efforts to combat terrorism?
They're wrong, they're lying through their teeth, and I can tell you from my own personal experience. When I was a young man in the service, I was in the intelligence service. I was an adjutant for the Communications Intelligence Service in Europe. That's what we did. We wiretapped people. We wantonly opened people's mail whenever we wanted to. And I'll tell you, we really did not learn hardly anything. And so what the government is doing right now, it does not work. Trust me on that. It is foolishness. And so this is an excuse to control you. This is the propensity of power in government to hold it over you. I've written extensively about secrecy. Let me tell you that 90% of what the government holds secret should be known to the American people. You have no idea how bad the government operates against you. You have no idea. It is a tragedy. I become President of the United States, I'll take that apple cart and turn it right over. Remember what happened with the implosion of communism? All the historians, everybody was looking at inside those records. This happens in this country, you'll be horrified what your government has done to you historically. And that's what needs to happen if we are going to save our democracy.
Our republic is in great danger. It's in great danger from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party and their efforts, sometimes with the best of intentions, to turn America into a police state. A police state in which all of your phone calls are listened to. That's already happening. A police state in which all of your email is read. That's already happening. A police state in which every animal gets a little chip so they can be tracked. That's a days. It's not quite done yet. Let's be realistic. Any marginally competent group of people who wants to come to America and do bad things is competent enough to do it in a way that will leave absolutely no traces that can be picked up on those wiretaps. On the other hand, if you're an employee of the spy agency and you're picking up all this interesting communication with Bear Stearns about what shape they're in and what's going to happen tomorrow, you have some huge opportunities to sell all that information to private people and make a ton of cash. And you can be pretty sure that's going on. And if you're a party leader and you'd like to know the secret plans of the other party to win the election, hey, you don't have to send the plumbers over to a Watergate building again. Well, they might try that. You can perfectly well have the NAS tell you everything you need to know. No, those wiretaps are crimes. They're criminal acts, as it says on the Supreme Court building. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. I will see that all those folks who did that are given fair trials, and that is what the overwhelming majority of Americans demand, because we don't want our phones tapped by George W. Bush.
The war on terror is a disaster. It's been fought incompetently. It's an egregious violation of your rights. Warrantless wiretaps are really an issue that goes back to our founding fathers. I just finished reading the biography of one of my heroes, Thomas Jefferson, the most libertarian president in the history of America. And the entire American Revolution was about the fact, number one, taxation without representation, but number two, that they didn't want the British to be able to knock your door down without a warrant, without a writ. That's what it was about in 1776, and we're back to the same issue today. Here's what it really comes down to. How can we justify fighting a war in Iraq to give them more rights and more liberties when we're taking them away from American citizens here? So all it comes down to is, tomorrow, I would end warrantless wiretaps. If you think someone's doing something wrong, get a warrant. It's not difficult. For those of you who know people in law enforcement, getting a warrant is perhaps one of the easiest things in the world. There's an easy judge anywhere that will give you a warrant for no reason. That's a problem too. But getting a warrant is not a problem. Why should we have warrantless wiretaps? End the Patriot Act. End torture. And change the war on terror. Are you aware that 7 years after 9/11, 10,000 FBI agents in the United States, and only 50 of them speak Arabic? That's our war on terror. Checking your toothpaste and your bottled water and your shoes while only 50 agents speak Arabic. There are better ways to fight the war on terror. And believe me when I tell you, all the libertarians on this stage have better ways to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. There's only one way to eliminate terrorism in this country. And that's to end the root causes of hatred towards the United States. We need to be an example of the democracy that we try to force onto other countries. We need to get out of this war in Iraq. We need to return our troops from all over the world where they don't belong. We need to get rid of the Patriot Act. We have to bring back habeas corpus. We have to close Guantanamo Bay. And we need to bring the Bush administration to justice for war crimes and treasonous violations of the Constitution. But let's understand why there's a war on terrorism. The war on terrorism is because it's feeding the industrial military complex. The war on terrorism exists solely because all the money that's being contributed to politicians' campaigns. That's why the war on terror exists. You may not like the war on terror. I might not like it, but the politicians certainly do. It's a great distraction issue. It means the Bush administration doesn't have to worry about issues like the debt or Social Security or health care or immigration, because they're fighting a war on terrorism. Of course, we don't know who the terrorists are. McCain doesn't even know who they are. We don't even know who the terrorists are. And years after the largest attack in American history, we're not even going after the people that caused the attack in the first place. So the only alternative we have is to break this two-party monopoly and return government back to we the people.
Bush and his gang have disgustingly exploited the horrible, murderous tragedy of 9/11 for their own benefit, for the stripping away of your civil liberties. Fear is a very powerful tool, and all Americans were legitimately concerned, deeply concerned about what the future held for us. And thus, federal government, Bush said, we're going to create the war on terror, a never-ending war. Talk about imperialism. We can go worldwide and always call it on terror. Well, you know what? That terroristic attack is a criminal act. And there's a big distinction between a criminal act and starting a war. Only Congress can start a war. And it is these unjustified invasions of sovereign nations that are responsible for the hatred of millions of people against Americans. It sure doesn't justify what they do, but it's certainly quite understandable when their families are dying for no reason and innocent civilians are suffering as they are in Iraq, that more and more people join the terrorists in their hatred of America. So it's being utilized to strip your civil liberties. This question was about our privacy. Well, I believe privacy is a fundamental right of all Americans, as of all human beings. And they don't need to be tapping your phone calls, reading your mail, reading your emails. Court orders are the answer. It worked before, it would work again. That's not the problem. The problem is stopping the blowback from our interventionism worldwide.
The wireless taps are just another way of asking us to trade our freedom for security, to trade our freedom for benefits, to trade our freedom for something. And I think, sadly, we've forgotten what that really means. Freedom in this context means freedom from government.